Yes, you read that right. Today we're diving straight into my top lifting fuck-ups. You know, the mistakes that set me back, had me wasting time, money, and plenty of energy. Hopefully, you'll get something out of this video because there's a hell of a lot that I wish I personally knew earlier. Now, I am a lifter at heart. Lifting changed and arguably saved my life. I love lifting and will continue to lift in every way that I can until I am no longer around. RIP to me at some point. If you're watching this in the future, spark up a joint in my name, shoot a gun in the air, do something for the love of God, do some reps for DRPAK. Beyond the science, the titles, the BS, the YouTubes, what will stay with me the most are all the top sessions and bad sessions that I've had over the years in the gym, the people I've met through the gym, and the iron game as a whole. Yes, learning about lifting is cool, advancing science is super cool, but straight up just lifting is why I'm here. If there's even one person out there that felt like they got to love lifting more through my shit, through watching or listening to my videos or whatever, then I feel like I've done something in this cruel world. But hey, cringe but legit emotional monologue aside, let's get into it. Mistake number one, believing that there are magical exercises for muscle growth. Magical, mandatory, call them whatever you want to call them. Like every beginner, like every new lifter, I thought that there were certain exercises you had to do if you wanted to get jacked. Squats, deadlifts, bench, military press, barbell rows, period. If you weren't doing those, especially the barbell variations, were you even training? I worshipped at the altar of these golden lifts like they were the fucking holy trinity of hypertrophy. And sure, they're great, and I still do most of them, but I became obsessed with the idea that if I wasn't deadlifting heavy or squatting, then I wasn't a real lifter. And always felt like I had to have them in my program, often taking a bit away from my training enjoyment and making lifting less fun than it could have been. When I had to do a heavy squat, that would take me a long time for my warm-ups to be done, for me to get psychologically ready, and so on and so forth. This took away, especially during periods where I wasn't really enjoying squatting and my goal was not to really improve my squat, that was potentially taking away from other valuable training that I could be doing for my goals. More importantly though, this sort of mentality ended up leading to me overestimating the importance of these exercises and underestimating the power of exercises that actually worked better for me. Now, when I say worked better for me, I do not mean that I am physiologically special or whatever, but rather there are times where specific exercises feel more enjoyable and you generally bond better with them. If you're a lifter, you understand. At the moment, I'm doing a lot of overhead pressing, 5 to 6 times a week, and I'm enjoying it. But I don't feel like I must do it. If in 3 weeks I start feeling like I want to train the incline press or the barbell row more, then I'll happily stop doing the barbell overhead press and simply just do a few more lateral raises so I make sure that my shoulders get enough of a stimulus. I wouldn't think twice about it though. If you're training with a high intensity of effort, even the most non-basic exercises that you have to perform with lighter loads will be effective. You don't have to do barbell squats just because Instagram says they're king or because hardcore lifters will tell you you have to squat 5 plates. You can try Bulgarian split squats, leg presses, or any other exercise and see if that feels better. If you're bored with an exercise after a while or even immediately, change it. It's totally fine. Now, if you are there not liking any exercise and find yourself constantly changing things around, then you may have to really think whether you truly enjoy lifting. But hey, I'm appealing to the one edge case here, I'll stop. Overall, do not get obsessed with specific exercises and think that they need to be there. Obviously, certain movement patterns are good to be in your program. Some form of squat pattern, some form of hitch pattern, vertical pulling, horizontal pulling, and so on and so forth. But as long as you can get close to failure with that exercise and progress it over time, it doesn't matter if it's the barbell squat, the barbell bench press, or if it's a chest press machine or a hack squat. Just find something that you enjoy doing, make sure you're ticking all boxes if you're trying to absolutely maximize muscle growth, and don't lose your mind. Mistake number 2, listening to jargon and fitness gurus. When I started lifting and before I embarked on my academic journey, before I started my first degree, I got sucked into the noise of fitness experts and fitness jargon in general, more specifically jargon around strength training and muscle building. Things like strength training is the best for muscle growth, or that you have to get extremely strong in order to get extremely muscular. Words like thickness builder, words like intensity techniques, all that jazz were things that seemed very appealing to my ADHD brain. At the time, as a young whippersnapper, as Omar says, I'd follow all these convoluted recommendations. But here's the thing, none of that shit matters unless you understand why something works or is supposed to work. I didn't know how to decipher what was real and what was hype, and I just listened to the person that either yelled the most or to the person that seemed to have the most parrots in their comment sections saying, oh yeah, that's right. There are a lot of things in our industry that people just parrot, that have zero scientific evidence behind them, and they've become sort of common knowledge when in reality they're common beliefs. And this is important for you to be able to recognize, because you can fall in the trap of thinking that, yeah, of course I'm gonna get stronger to get bigger. That's how that works. But then when you look at the scientific evidence behind it, you're like, oh, okay, training for maximal strength is likely not the best way to also get maximally bigger. So why are all these people swearing by that? After I open the curtain, I see that there's actually no solid evidence for such claims. And that may come as a reality check to many of you out there. So yeah, as a young lifter, instead of spending time learning how things actually work and how I should program better and how to program intelligently, I spent a good amount of time parroting things other authority figures were saying simply because they were who they were and because other people were parroting them as well. No, shitty form cheat barbell rows are not a supreme thickness builder simply because someone said so. No, this one workout arrangement won't magically add slabs of muscle on you unless it follows sound scientific principles, and even then, it's likely nothing special. The best lesson I learned was to ignore the noise and actually look at the evidence. Platitudes, appeal to authority, and exaggerated claims, usually backed by anecdotal observations, are not it, and in many cases may do more damage than good, especially if you're trying to make sense of things. Being evidence-based is where it's at, and that doesn't mean what you likely think it means. It does not mean solely relying on the scientific evidence for everything and having a PubMed link for everything, because for some things we don't even have scientific evidence to back them up. But it means using scientific evidence as your base and then looking at your experience, other people's experience and preference, and then combining all that together. Additionally, extreme claims require extreme proof. Make it your mission to look for that evidence versus just accepting something somebody said as common knowledge. A good example is deloads. A couple of years or so ago, we had zero studies directly looking at the concept of deloads, yet there were many people making pretty heavy and certain claims about deloads, their necessity, and exactly how they should be implemented to maximize growth. Sure, I hear you. Some general guidance based on scientific principles is fine, but that's not the same as saying deloading for X amount of weeks or every X amount of weeks will likely also increase muscle growth, decrease injury risk, etc. There's a big difference. And spoiler alert, a lot of the stuff in our niche that is hyped up is bullshit. No, I hear you typing lengthened partials are not bullshit. I see you commenting, Mr. Hater. Lengthened partials are arguably better than electricity. Do not fact check me on this, but they are. Ignore what I just said and just accept what the authority figure is telling you. Lengthened partials. Sing it with me. Lengthened partials. Lengthened partials are my life. Mistake number 3 was just strength training. I fell into the trap of thinking that minimalist strength training was enough to more or less maximize muscle growth, when in reality, I could have been doing a few more exercises and a bit more volume, which would have allowed me to make more gains. Now, don't get me wrong, I love minimalist training. My entire PhD was literally on the minimum effective dose for strength. And yes, you can make amazing gains by doing a few exercises and a few hard sets per week. That's also depending on the exact program that you follow and what exercise you select. But let's say you do, a traditional minimalist program with a few barbell exercises. That can be extremely simple to conceptualize, easy for everybody to follow, and sometimes quite time efficient. But although it can be effective for building foundational strength and a solid amount of muscle mass, it can fall short when your goal is to maximize hypertrophy across multiple muscle groups. And in some cases, it can actually be less time efficient than people think, especially if you're taking strength training seriously and you're tailoring your rest periods to maximize strength. We've talked about rest periods before, and although for hypertrophy, things seem to be very flexible, and even if you rest less than a minute, sure, you may be leaving some gains on the table, but it's really not the end of the world. And as long as you're resting a minute and a half, a couple of minutes, you're likely covered. For strength, if you're taking strength seriously, there are times where resting 5 and even more minutes in some cases can be beneficial for your performance, which matters much more than when you're training for hypertrophy, where you essentially want to, sure, progress the load over time on exercises, but essentially be close to failure. If I'm doing a heavy squat and I'm taking my training seriously, I am resting a minimum of 4 to 5 minutes between heavy sets. And that, for a lot of people, can take time. I'm sure you have some powerlifter friends or like strength enthusiast friends who you see coming into the gym and may need up to an hour to finish a handful or less of heavy squats, including their warm-ups and the overall preparation that it requires. That includes myself as well. A heavy set of squats or heavy set of deadlifts will take me an exceptional amount of time compared to what it would take to do a bunch of machine hypertrophy work sets. Furthermore, and since Big Volume paid their dues this month as well and paid me my monthly check, we know that more volume will likely lead to more gains. Now, that depends on what volume you're doing at the moment, yada, 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 disclaimers, don't kill me, but doing a handful of sets on a few exercises and neglecting some muscle groups per week, not ideal for hypertrophy. And it's important to note that when you're focused on strength training, like I was, and this is a mistake I made, just by focusing on key lifts, I was neglecting things like shoulders, arms, and even lats. Like for a couple of years, I was mostly doing squats, presses, push-ups, deadlifts, barbell rows, and the occasional lat pull down, missing out on potential gains. Like I was not doing any direct arm or side delt work. Did those muscles also get some growth from the presses and pulls? Sure, but I'd arguably make more gains had I just not forced the pure strength training approach. Again, sure, I was having fun and still making gains, but by incorporating a great variety of exercises and increasing volume intelligently, not doing anything extreme, but increasing it a bit, the potential for muscle growth would have been significantly enhanced. Disclaimer: I am by no means knocking strength training, especially if you don't really care about getting maximally jacked. And if you look at pictures of me during my strength training days, I was still jacked and pretty strong, at least for general gym standards, right? I was no Larry Wheels, but I did care about getting more jacked. And in hindsight, forcing the 3 times a week strength training routine, because that's all you need, which then ties into the previous mistake I mentioned, is a mistake that I could have avoided, and it could have accelerated my gains by a bit. Do I regret it much? Not really, as I was still having fun lifting. Would I change a few things if I could go back? Yes, for sure. I would definitely do more direct arm work, side delt, and lat work, as I have been doing for the past 3 years or so. And as it stands, I train 4 to 6 times per week, blasting all my upper body musculature with 10 to 20 direct sets per week, and simply squatting and deadlifting heavy to maintain my leg strength and size. AKA still after that 300 kilo, AKA 660 pounds deadlift, hopefully at some point in the future, my biggest training achievement if I manage to do it. I'm close, but we'll see. Moving on to mistake number 4, thinking gains would come fast as pack on 10 pounds of muscle in 30 days sort of stuff. Yep, I bought into that. I thought that if I just lifted a lot, ate like a maniac, and slept like a baby, which back in my early lifter days I was, things would happen overnight. The impatience was a killer. Blame the ADHD, blame social media, blame human nature, but the reality was that I wanted to make gains now. The day after, I wanted to be jacked that second. However, to my disappointment, the reality is that muscle growth is painfully slow. It requires small, consistent progress that adds up over time, and if you're expecting to be unrecognizably massive in a couple of months, you're in for a world of disappointment. The truth hurts, but once I accepted that every little bit of progress counts and it's gonna take years, not months, I finally settled for the long game. That was a big mistake. I know it's not the sexy mistake that you wanna hear about. You wanna hear about lengthened partials and muscle growth and the latest study, but the reality is, for many of you out there, give it time. It will take time. It's not sexy to say it, but like rewire yourself. Winter arc grinds it, but rewire your head to think that, you know, every workout is a small step there. Make it your habit. You're a lifter for life. Do your shit. It will happen eventually. You'll get as big as you possibly can if you just stay the fucking course and trust the process. Train hard, do it for 10 years, and that's you looking as jacked as you can possibly look. An easier way than that to avoid making mistakes is MyoAdapt, MyoAdapt.com, the up-and-coming beast of a training app that is the next best thing after one-to-one premium coaching. Yes, the app will coach you, will make an absolute beast of a program for you based on your preferences, and actually your preferences, even if those are doing fucking calves 6 times a week and only having a barbell and some dumbbells in your home gym as your equipment. It will do it for you. It will use the latest scientific evidence to, one, create your program, adjust it every week, and obviously you can be super flexible. Don't want to do that extra set? Don't do it. Want to change your program? You can change it. Want to deload because you're going on holiday? You can do that. Plenty of cool stuff, super versatile, super evidence-based, and continuously informed by the science. Volume conspiracy ends up being real. We were paid by big volume all along. No worries. Pop, 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 behind the scenes, you're set. Volume recommendations have changed. Lengthened partials scam. Milo Wolf was a robot and he made it up. The alien sent him, no problem. Range of motion recommendations changed. Not that, like the videos would change or the guidance, I don't know. But high reps, best for muscle growth. Easy. Everything is updated according to the latest science. Super affordable, obviously free trial included. Try it, you don't like it, hey, what can we do? You're a loser. Just kidding, you're an amazing person. Try it again. But joking aside, free trial included, give it a go. I'm sure you won't be disappointed. App, closed beta, launching soon. Actual app launching also soon. Yes, it's taking time. It's taking 3 years to make this. It's an actual app, no templates, no bullshit. MyoAdapt.com, express interest now. Sorry for the long ad. ADHD, diagnosed, dab on them. Boom! Mistake number 5, wasting money on useless supplements and majoring in the minors. Yeah, this was a big trap, especially during the first couple of years of my lifting career. BCAAs, fancy protein blends, pre-workout formulas, EAAs, all sorts of stuff. I bought into all of these things. I thought that I needed to actually take a bunch of supplements to make solid gains. Granted, it was during the first couple of years of lifting, but I legit had 10 different supplements. And I thought that these are a must if I want to make actual gains. Guess what? Most of these supplements don't do jack shit. Sure, protein powder is a convenient way to hit your macros, and creatine's solid and has some evidence behind it. But most of the shit they sell at supplement stores is legitimately a waste of money. Instead of obsessing over the next sort of breakthrough supplement or spending a lot of money on whatever, make sure you eat mostly whole food, get your protein in, hit your training, and ignore everything else. It's, again, as I said, like majoring in the minors. You spend all your time on tiny shit that barely makes a difference, and then in the end, you have nothing to show for it. The basics are king, I know, not sexy, but supplements specifically, if you're a new lifter watching this and you've thought about buying supplements, this, that, the other, sure, there are a couple of things that may give you a tiny bit of a boost, like creatine, or from a health perspective, like vitamin D, let's say you're not seeing the sun whatsoever, but there is nothing out there you actually need. If you're eating well, training, and you're sleeping well, you are covered. So yeah, those were my biggest fuck-ups. Thinking exercises were magical, getting lost in the BS advice and parroting stuff, training with too little volume and forcing strength training, expecting gains quick, and dumping money into useless crap. Silver lining, I learned a hell of a lot along the way, which made me a better lifter in the long run. And if any of this resonates with you, take a step back, keep shit simple, and don't fall into the same traps I did. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, hit the notification icon. Do I need to say these things anymore? Rascal Apparel and Dynamo. Shout out to my mother for providing Omar with this word. Shout out to Omar Yusuf, Rascal Apparel, code DRPAK for the best lifting clothes out there. We've been wearing them for a minute, and I'll see you guys next time.